We need to maintain the stay-at-home order and all public health measures until at least June the 2nd. These are precious weeks we won't put to waste.
Status quo, extending the stay-at-home order for at least another 2 weeks. Restrictions and rules remaining in place. The Premier saying Ontario isn't out of the woods yet. Good evening. Doug Ford acknowledges Ontario is seeing progress in the fight against COVID-19, but shouldn't rush to reopen.
The goal, in his words, to have the most normal July and August as possible. And so the province-wide stay-at-home order will be extended until at least June 2nd. Meanwhile, Ford is repeating his call for more border restrictions, prompting backlash from the Prime Minister. And for the first time, Ontarians have a clear timeline for those 12 and older as to when they'll start receiving vaccines. This continuation of COVID conditions also means schools remain closed.
Also off limits, most outdoor recreation, despite opposition from many health experts. We begin our coverage with CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Colin DeMello. Colin.
Well, lockdown life is going to continue in Ontario, Michelle. Everything from the economy to schools and, yes, even golf courses are going to remain closed for another 2 weeks until at least, the Premier says, June 2nd. With COVID-19 still spreading in Ontario and nearly 800 critical care beds still occupied, Premier Doug Ford confirmed today what many had expected, that the stay-at-home order is being extended by 2 weeks before the reopening can potentially begin.
I expect that by June the 2nd, so long as we stay the course, we will be able to reopen outdoor recreation. And by then, we will provide more details on our plan to carefully and safely begin to reopen the province in the days and weeks to follow.
But exactly what it will take to get us there, the province cannot say. The government is still working on the criteria to trigger a reopening. And the Chief Medical Officer of Health says he wants to move in slow motion.
We didn't get all the way out of the second wave before we went into the third wave. We do not want to repeat that again. If we're going to open things up with the dimmer switch, we want to open and stay open. And we do not want a fourth wave.
Preventing a fourth wave has also opened up a new fight between Ontario and Ottawa over the Canadian border. The Premier has claimed that the border is porous and a potentially vaccine-resistant variant that is yet to be verified could slip in. The Premier is placing the blame at the feet of the Prime Minister.
You know there's a problem, and he's not doing anything about it. Like, what gives? You want to protect Canadians, you want to protect Ontarians, you want to stop variants from coming in.
The Prime Minister fired back.
Kind of frustrating and disappointing that the province is still trying to point fingers.
Trudeau says it's been 2 weeks since he spoke with Premier Doug Ford to ask for specific border closures.
They still haven't said what categories they want to restrict, how they want to reduce international arrivals.
Today, the Ford government sent a letter to the federal government asking for 3 things: to reduce incoming international flights, to implement mandatory pre-departure testing for all air travelers entering Ontario, and to introduce a mandatory 3-day hotel quarantine for people who cross the border by land. The government says there has not been any action so far. The Ford government has made the border the focus of its recent pandemic efforts, complete with attack ads launched by the Progressive Conservative Party. PC Party insiders tell CTV News, however, the Premier is looking to change the channel on his own recent performance, and critics are calling it out.
The Premier seems to be spending 100% of his time on what science is telling us is where 2% of the outbreaks are, COVID cases are, through travel. The Premier is using the border to deflect from his own failures.
Critics say the Premier should be focused on planning for the future and lifting the province out of the pandemic. And the Premier says he's hoping to see a more normalized July and August, albeit without those large sporting events or concerts as well. The Premier also saying if the supply of vaccines keeps up, we could in this province have a 2-dose summer this summer. Reporting live at Queen's Park, I'm Colin DeMello. Now back to you.
All right, thank you, Colin. And you can find a full list of details from today's announcement on our website, including a list of the rules involved with the stay-at-home order. That's all at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
Meanwhile, the Premier's statements over variants and the vaccine are generating questions from some health experts.
Doug Ford suggesting a possible 4th wave could be triggered by strains resistant to the shot. CTV's Zoraida Allman's live with more. Zoraida.
Well, Nathan, as Colin mentioned, the Premier made the comment as part of his criticism of Ottawa's border policies, but he didn't back it up with any science. And right now, according to the experts, proof that any new variants are resistant to vaccines just doesn't exist. As Ontario continues to fight its way out of a third wave of COVID-19, the Premier today doubled down on the pressure he's been putting on the federal government to tighten the borders by suggesting new variants of concern are resistant to vaccines.
And the federal government needs to protect us all from a fourth wave fueled by vaccine-resistant variant. We won't relent on this.
So what does the science say about this? Well, when it comes to the variant of concern out of India,
I think fears that this is going to, by itself, ignite a fourth wave are probably premature. They're speculative.
CTV News infectious disease specialist Dr. Abdu Sharkawi says right now there is no clear evidence that this variant is more deadly, more contagious, or ineffective against existing vaccines.
Truthfully, I don't think there is much evidence at this point in time to suggest that our existing vaccines are not going to be effective against them. We just haven't had enough time to have meaningful studies done.
As for the other variants, including the UK, South African, and Brazilian, the official guidance on Health Canada's website reads, Health Canada is monitoring the emerging variants closely. We are working with manufacturers and international regulators to assess the impact of the new variants on the effectiveness of approved vaccines and treatments. And in the US, the Centers for Disease Control says this. So far, studies suggest that antibodies generated through vaccination with currently authorized vaccines recognize these variants. This is being closely investigated and more studies are underway. Medical experts say what we should be focused on right now is getting more vaccines into arms.
Right now, we have bigger fish to fry, so to speak. We need to make sure that we get our population vaccinated, and then we need to make sure that we decrease our current prevalence so that we're not creating variants right here at home.
And I think if we do that, we really don't need to be welling up any fear or alarm unnecessarily.
And again, the medical experts say the best thing we can do right now, rather than focusing on the possibility of new variants, is to continue to follow public health guidelines to decrease spread in the community and to get vaccinated. I'm Zoraida Allman. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Zoraida. As this stay-at-home order continues, physical distancing is being urged for any outdoor gatherings. And at Trinity Bellwoods Park in downtown Toronto tonight, that means the return of those familiar painted circles on the grass. CTV's Austin Delaney is down there in the park with more. It looks busy there, Austin.
Well, Michelle, as you know, this is a pretty popular park, especially with young people. And last year, during the May 24 weekend, things got a bit wild. Thousands of people down here not wearing masks, and it was very dangerous for spreading COVID. So the city borrowed an idea from another jurisdiction and brought in the safety circles. The park circles are back.
I love them. They're a little silly. You're like, oh, they're kind of like crop circles. How did they get here? Did aliens bring them here? But of course, that's not the case.
City of Toronto crews painting the social distancing circles on the grass here at the very popular Trinity Bellwoods Park.
It's just a simple process. It's squaring out the field and measuring out the circles, make sure you got the right distance in between them, and giving enough room for 3 people in the center, I think, to have a seat, or 2 people to lay down.
Some circles more crowded than others today. At 8 feet in diameter and 12 feet apart, 450 of them here in the West End Park.
It's obviously not the best time to be too close to other people, but with staying a little bit safer and still being able to be out in public, it's kind of nice.
Nicely spaced out, and you can keep to yourself but still be outside with other people.
We're going to be sitting on the grass. It's not hard to, sit down, follow these rules. These are just simple things that help, I guess. Yeah, especially Trinity Bellwoods, it gets pretty busy. We live in the area, so we've seen it when it's crazy. Last summer, it was packed.
Distancing proved a challenge last summer until the city put the paint down to give people their space. But there is much frustration in the popular park today as news spread from circle to circle that the provincial lockdown has been extended to June 2nd.
As you can see, I'm an athlete, and it's every day is just a struggle, because usually we'd be out here with a group of friends. Luckily, we're here together and we can just kind of throw a ball safely.
For the most part, I feel like we are in the I guess, final run, you could say, and I'm willing to do what it takes to get to the end of it.
I'm trusting the government for a little bit longer. I just hope we can get out of this. I'm doing my part. I hope everyone else is doing their part.
The Canadian Civil Liberties Association has tallied the number of fines handed out to COVID rule breakers. In this province, between March 2020 and August 2020, 2,562 tickets. From September 2020 to March 21, 3,942 fines. And in January of this year, peak enforcement at 1,368. And we're taking live pictures now from our chopper of Trinity Bellwoods Park. You can see that these social circles really work. People are huddled in them. It's like a barrier to not kind of go and mingle too much. The circles themselves, they're done with paint, so they don't wash away, but they have to be redone during the summer as the grass grows. Expect these circles to be here all summer long. We're putting live. I'm Austin Delaney.
All right, thank you, Austin. The province has now seen more than 500,000 cases over the course of the pandemic. Public Health Ontario is reporting 2,759 new cases in its most recent update. It pushes the total to more than 502,000. 31 more deaths are linked to the virus, putting that figure at 8,405. And more than 464,000 cases are now considered resolved.
The regional breakdown looks like this, with 774 new cases in the city of Toronto and 602 in Peel Region. York Region is adding 258 new cases, with 147 in Durham, 133 in Hamilton. There are 104 new cases in Halton Region and 81 in Niagara.
Turning next to the vaccination campaign and the expanded eligibility.
Those 40 and over now able to book on the provincial portal. And the date for Ontario teenagers is approaching. The Ministry of Health says nearly 138,000 doses were administered across the province yesterday, and more than 6.6 million shots have been given out during this rollout. More than 407,000 people in Ontario are considered vaccinated, having received both required doses. Those 12 and up will be able to register starting the week of May 31st.
But there are some who believe that approach isn't the right one. CTV's Natalie Johnson explains.
I really want to go back to school because people find it hard to work online.
13-year-old Ramiz Khan of Brampton can't wait to get vaccinated against COVID-19 and will now qualify to book his shot beginning May 31st.
I have a lot of family in the United States whose kids between 12 and 17 are being vaccinated. They're getting back to their normal lives.
But as the province touts the upcoming eligibility expansion for youth aged 12 to 17.
This is our best tool to ensure we have a safe and healthy return, in-person learning.
Some experts argue that Ontario's elderly population should receive their second dose before young people get their first.
You'll save more hospitalization and you'll save more lives by that strategy.
Dr. Harry Rakowski points to the fact that both the rates of hospitalization and death continue to climb by age, with people 80 and up still vulnerable to COVID-19 after one dose.
They don't mount the same immune response in terms of the amount of antibody production, and they probably have a greater decay in their antibody production.
I don't think we necessarily need to be thinking about it as an either or.
Dr. Nathan Stahl estimates that about 500,000 Ontarians over 80 still need a second shot, but says there should be plenty of supply to prioritize second doses for them while still vaccinating young people.
Now that the supply has changed, we need to change our course and nuance our strategy a bit. And that's circling back and making sure that we vaccinate these older adults.
The Ministry of Health told CTV News in a statement, as we continue to receive more vaccines from the federal government, we may eventually be able to shorten the interval for all Ontarians.
Elderly are vulnerable right now with only the one dose.
Carol Langer says it can't come soon enough for her 88-year-old mom.
She's very anxious. She's waiting for that second shot.
Natalie Johnson, CTV News.
Still ahead as Ontario's lockdown lingers, our neighbors to the south are getting new guidance. Those who are fully vaccinated now able to lose their mask in most places.
It's the end of the road for a former mainstay of highways across this country. Greyhound Canada coming to a sudden stop.
After more than a century in operation, the company falling victim to changing habits, unable to outlast this pandemic. CTV's Scott Lightfoot is live downtown with more. Scott.
Well, Nathan, it was 1 year ago today that Greyhound temporarily suspended their operations here due to the pandemic. Today they announced that it will be a permanent stoppage, announcing that they are ceasing all operations in Canada. It was the gateway in and out of this city for thousands of people, but as of midnight tonight, all Greyhound bus routes in Canada will be shut down.
Absolutely sad day today. Tough decision that's been made by Greyhound and announcing to our customers and employees that we're going to exit the Canadian business.
The company had suspended operations 1 year ago today due to a dramatic drop in ticket sales. The company says a year without riders made it impossible to continue operating.
All of our business requires revenue fare box, people in the seats, and 1 year of not operating and really is made this decision very difficult to exit the market.
For those who've relied on the service to get from city to city, it is disappointing news.
I think that's not a great thing that Greyhound closed.
And it is terrible news for the hundreds of workers who are employed by the company. In a statement, the president of the Amalgamated Transit Union International said, "This is devastating news for the thousands of Canadians, especially those from Indigenous and First Nations communities who have relied on Greyhound for transportation. Seniors won't be able to visit their families, students won't be able to get to school, and many others will be left stranded. More than 400 workers, including 305 of my brothers and sisters, are now out of a job." The union says the federal and provincial governments are to blame for not providing financial relief to the intercity bus industry during the pandemic and before. In 2018, Greyhound closed its operations in Western Canada after declining ridership there.
The writing was on the wall. Greyhound's ridership was going down, down, down.
Today's announcement will impact routes going between Toronto, Ottawa and Montreal, Toronto, London and Windsor, Sudbury, Ottawa and Toronto, Toronto, Kitchener, Guelph and Cambridge, Toronto and Niagara Falls, and Ottawa and Kingston. And today's announcement has no impact on Greyhound's operations south of the border. Greyhound USA says they will continue to operate their cross-border routes. They have 5 of them, including service from New York to Toronto and Buffalo to Toronto. Reporting live at the Coach Terminal downtown, I'm Scott Lightfoot. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Scott. On a much lighter note, the sunshine sure is a nice treat today. It's gorgeous outside this evening. Lindsay, no surprise all those people were flocking to Trinity Bellwoods Park.
Absolutely. You know, Michelle, we reached 20 degrees for the first time, not only this month, but for the first time since April 10th today. So a great day to be outside. It's still 20 degrees right now, in fact, in Niagara, starting to cool down in some other communities. A little bit cooler if you're joining us closer to the shores of Lake Ontario than compared to Pearson International, where it is still 18 degrees right now. Winds are coming out of the southeast off Lake Ontario, but they're coming out of the northwest off Lake Huron. That created what we call lake breezes, and as a result, there's been a couple of showers around the Peterborough area and a couple of showers around Kitchener-Waterloo and over toward Hamilton. We are looking at many sunny days here in the city of Toronto ahead, with a couple of exceptions. I'll show you when we have our next best chance of a passing shower coming up. For now, Nathan, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. Next to the trial for the teacher accused in connection with the drowning of Jeremiah Perry, the 15-year-old who died on a school canoe trip to Algonquin Park.
Today, court hearing about events several weeks before the tragedy. CTV's Janice Golding reports.
On day 4 of Toronto teacher Nicholas Mills' trial for criminal negligence causing death, the court heard from the former executive director of Sparrow Lake Camp near Gravenhurst. "I did not feel that they were ready to go on a canoe trip," Barbara Wheaton testified. 2 weeks before the canoe trip, where 15-year-old Jeremiah Perry would drown, the accused teacher and dozens of C.W. Jeffrey students attended Sparrow Lake Camp for an overnight stay. Wheaton says she originally expected 20 to 24 students, along with 4 teachers, to take outdoor education training. And then the number of 38 came just a day or 2 before they actually arrived. And there are only 2 teachers, not 4. Wheaton also says Nicholas Mills told me originally that there would be lifeguards attending, and there wasn't. Wheaton says planned swim tests also did not go as planned. She says her program director expected to administer the Ontario Physical and Health Education Association, or OPHEA, swim test. However, she says Nicholas Mills expressed to them that there was no point in doing that swim test because the majority of them wouldn't be able to complete it or pass it. Despite her program director's concerns, they finally agreed to administer a camp swim test wherein students could swim a certain distance and tread water wearing a personal flotation device. But Wheaton says Nicholas Mills was told repeatedly, if you were to have put a PFD on, that was an automatic fail of the actual swim test, adding, over half of them did not do the swim test without a personal flotation device. Whedon, who was personally responsible for the canoe training, described being very uncomfortable at points because the participants had never been in a canoe. They'd never been in deep water before. It was a cold and windy day, and they were scared. They said, "I don't want to do this, miss. I'm scared." 15-year-old Jeremiah Perry was among them. I remember him being very scared about the canoe tipping, and he was very uncomfortable in the canoe. Whedon testified that Mills himself didn't participate in the swimming or canoe training, adding that the equipment the group brought was in poor condition. The tent poles were broken, the stoves didn't work, the water filter didn't work, so we had to scramble and get our own equipment to do proper demonstrations. Barbara Whedon testified she expressed concerns with respect to the students' skill levels. They didn't get enough time in a canoe to practice their skills. They didn't get enough time to be comfortable in the water. And because of the size of the group, I had concerns about just so many people being on one trip. And I expressed those concerns to the teachers. Whedon says she told the teachers that the planned excursion was a big risk and told the court today that she herself would never have taken so many non-swimmers on a backcountry canoe trip in Algonquin under any circumstances. Janice Golding, CTV News.
Straight ahead, the results of the Federal Ethics Commissioner's report on the We Charity controversy. The Prime Minister cleared of wrongdoing, but why a former cabinet minister is in hot water.
Returning to our virus coverage, as more people get vaccinated, experts say we can't forget about the important role of testing.
Pop-up clinics being used to get a better sense of the spread of the virus. CTV's Mike Walker is live with more tonight. Mike.
Well, Michelle, paramedics hosted 2 mobile testing clinics here in the Flemington Park area. And even though vaccination efforts have ramped up in this COVID-19 hotspot, health experts say it's critical to continue testing to better track and control the spread of the virus. As the mobile testing clinics rolled into this Flemington Park neighborhood this afternoon, Eric Pono was among the first in line.
I am here because one of my friends got tested yesterday, and it turns out that he's positive.
He lives and works in the COVID-19 hotspot and doesn't want to take any chances.
I work as a security, so it's really hard for me to just go to work, and it's really risky.
One of 2 mobile testing clinics paramedics are operating in Flemington Park today, where Toronto Public Health is reporting 144 cases of the virus.
In this area, there isn't a swabbing site as close as in other areas. It helps to provide that access to swabbing.
Most of our community members are frontline workers.
Jennifer Rajakar is a support worker with the neighborhood organization, the agency working with paramedics to test as many people as possible in the high-density working-class community.
To see, whether it's spreading, so they will protect them too and provide them the support they needed.
The city and paramedics started deploying the retrofitted TTC buses to hard-hit neighborhoods in December. Since then, 10,000 COVID-19 tests have been administered.
Testing, again, gets other people isolated, reduces transmission, reduces the spread to vulnerable populations.
Even as vaccination efforts ramp up and the age eligibility is lowered, health experts say these mobile testing clinics remain critical in slowing the spread of the virus.
50% of adults being vaccinated still means 50% of adults are susceptible, right? And so, you really can't do this without contact tracing and testing.
For those who got the swab today, they're grateful for the accessibility.
Very convenient. You don't need to go somewhere else.
While looking for peace of mind. Officials tell us they administered more than 50 tests between the 2 locations today. They say there is still a long way to go. They plan on organizing about 2 of these mobile pop-up testing clinics every month. Reporting live by Mike Walker. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. The United States is taking a significant step toward returning to normalcy. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention issued updated masking guidelines today.
You can start doing the things that you had stopped doing because of the pandemic. We have all longed for this moment.
Yes, the CDC is advising fully vaccinated people don't need to wear masks outdoors, and they can avoid wearing them indoors in most places. But it's still recommended they be worn on planes and trains, at airports and transit hubs, and in hospitals and doctors' offices. There will be no need for fully vaccinated people to physically distance in most places. Now, despite the new CDC guidance, Canadian health officials say public health measures should not be relaxed on this side of the border.
Relaxing either their own
personal protective measures, but also respecting what measures might be put in place at the community level.
Now, he says even as more Canadians get their shots, public health measures such as physical distancing, mask wearing, and frequent hand washing remain key. He has broken federal ethics laws twice before, but today the Prime Minister was cleared of conflict of interest in connection with the We Charity scandal.
But Justin Trudeau's former finance minister was found to have violated the rules by showing preferential treatment. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver reports.
The Prime Minister and his family may have repeatedly taken the stage with We Charity. But today, Canada's ethics watchdog cleared Justin Trudeau of any wrongdoing in relation to his decision to grant We Charity a federal contract. I am satisfied that there was no opportunity to further Mr. Trudeau's own interests or those of his relatives.
I did not intervene.
Trudeau came under scrutiny last year for failing to recuse himself when choosing We Charity to administer a student service grant program, a controversy that saw the $900 million program scrapped.
The Prime Minister's decision to go down this path clearly resulted in an attempt to help friends and hurt students.
The system is broken. There are gaps in lobbying, and there's special access for people close to the Prime Minister, and that has to stop.
While Trudeau is in the clear,
I wrote a check in payment of $41,366.
His former finance minister, Bill Morneau, whose family went on a paid trip with We, is not. I found that Mr. Morneau had the opportunity to improperly further We's private interests. The ethics commissioner says Morneau and the Kielburgers were friends and that his office engaged in preferential treatment, with his staff disproportionately assisting We. The verdict may be out, but the pain for the government is far from over.
It's not a reprieve for the Liberal Party and what has occurred. And for those Canadians that were disappointed and upset at what happened with the We Charity and the Liberal government last year, this isn't going to change anything.
In a statement issued today, Morneau reiterated that he should have recused himself from this discussion. As for the Prime Minister, he said this report highlights what he's been saying all along, that no conflict of interest existed. Annie Bergeron-Oliver, CTV News, Ottawa.
Muslims around the world are marking the end of Ramadan, the second Eid al-Fitr celebrated amid a global pandemic.
Here in the GTA, scaled down festivities bringing together many who have spent the last year on the front line of this health crisis. CTV's John Musselman reports.
Colorful decorations and tasty treats for the children. It was all part of the Eid celebrations to mark the end of Ramadan. Here in Mississauga, more than 7,000 people took part in this drive-through event. Many of the people here are frontline healthcare workers who have put in long hours in hospitals and medical clinics. They had to fast during the day, no food or water during the Muslim holy month.
Wearing the mask because you have to talk behind the mask. As you can see, I have to raise my voice for the patients to hear me. So yeah, it was quite dry at the end of the day.
CTV News infectious disease specialist Abdu Sharkawi says this has been the toughest Ramadan he has experienced in 20 years.
Because of not only the actual physical toll of very long fasts and the workload within the hospital, but I think the mental load, the emotional toll that dealing with this has taken on healthcare providers like myself.
This is the second year in a row Muslims are marking Eid during the pandemic. Getting time with family has not been easy for many healthcare workers.
My brother-in-law and my sister-in-law, they're both doctors in states. And trying to get even a single day off during this pandemic is almost next to impossible.
Today we mark the end of Ramadan, and it's an incredible. The more I've learned, the more I've seen in all the years that I've been coming to Ramadan and Iftar and Eid celebrations, the more I realize that it is the conclusion of a month of immense dedication and sacrifice.
Organizers say this drive-through event gives local Muslim families the opportunity to take part in Eid celebrations. Families remain in their vehicles as they pass the mosque. John Musselman, CTV News in Mississauga.
Still to come, an Ontario father's incredible story of survival, thanking the doctors who gave him a second chance at life.
I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, the past year has been challenging for many college and university students, especially those attending Laurentian University in Sudbury. The school is in a financial crisis. Programs have been slashed, and some students say they're losing thousands of dollars. I'll have my report. That's just ahead.
Temperatures are seasonal, but in many parts of southern Ontario, this has been our warmest day of the month so far. And not only that, but we have an abundance of sunshine. It's the time of year where you will hear us talking more about the UV index. This is where a number or a rating is attached to the day, indicating how strong the sun's rays are. And even in May, those rays are pretty strong. Tomorrow's UV index is expected to be an 8 or very high. We'll talk about how long this run of sun could last. CTV News will be right back.
Laurentian University in Sudbury is in the midst of a financial crisis. They've slashed programs, laid off staff, and told some students they have to leave.
Some families say they feel the school has failed them and they want reimbursement for lost scholarships, housing costs, and other expenses. Pat Foran has the story tonight on Consumer Alert. Pat.
Michelle and Nathan, the university is under investigation because it is close to going bankrupt. Students who had their programs canceled are trying to get answers, and some families feel they should be compensated for added expenses needed to find a new school. Laurentian University in Sudbury is undergoing restructuring after declaring insolvency and reporting hundreds of millions of dollars in unpaid debts. The school cut 39% of its programs and told students like Peter Parsons, who is from New Lowell west of Barrie, to leave.
I'm in a 4-year actuarial science program, which is like a math and risk management assessment. Second year, during exams, they completely cut it and advised me to transfer schools.
The announcement came as a shock to the Parsons family. They say along with lost scholarships, signed leases for housing and other expenses, they will lose about $7,000, plus the added cost to apply and move to another university.
They have provided nothing for us except, oh, here's a university that possibly you can go to, and sorry about your luck.
Parsons will have to try and find another school offering a similar program and may have to retake courses. He says he chose Laurentian because he felt on graduation he would have good job prospects.
But now that I'm not able to finish my degree there in a school that's going under, I'm sure it doesn't look too great for employers to see.
The university is under creditor protection, and Ontario's Auditor General has been asked to investigate how it could be so close to bankruptcy.
We will have a report done by the Auditor General that shows what happened to the money.
CTV News reached out to Laurentian University, but the school did not respond to our requests. The Parsons did receive a letter from the Ministry of Colleges and Universities that said the university has indicated that it has mapped a path forward for students in any impacted programs.
Who would have thought when signing a lease that you wouldn't be able to complete your degree at that university? It's unheard of. It shouldn't be happening in Canada.
And despite issues at the university, Laurentian is returning to in-class learning this September, but the financial problems could make students and staff nervous about what the future holds for the school. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
Right to the forecast. Now is the time. Get outside, wash the car, get the water maybe.
It's just amazing. When you think just not too long ago, at this time, it's pitch black, freezing, and now here we are. Finally, we made it, Lindsay.
Finally, and the sun is now setting after 8:30, so we still do have quite a bit of time to enjoy the conditions outside. Not only is it sunny, but it's warm, and temperatures are only getting warmer, not only here at home, but in through Western Canada. Next week, it's possible that Winnipeg could have a 30-degree day, and we too may not be that warm, but we too will be tapping into some warmer air next week as well. Let's talk all about it. Weather is brought to you by Train. For home comfort, cooling, and clean air, it's hard to stop a train. Today, we made it to a high of 20 degrees. The seasonal average is 19. Yesterday, we came close. It was 18 degrees, but today is now pretty easily our warmest day of the month so far. 7 is the forecast overnight low. It is still going to be a little bit chilly for communities to our north and to our west. And once again, those communities are under a frost advisory. This time, Guelph, Kitchener-Waterloo, and extending north toward the Bruce Peninsula. For us here in the GTA, it'll be a milder start to the day tomorrow, and then the the afternoon. We're looking at a three-peat, our third consecutive day of wall-to-wall sunshine, and once again forecasting a daytime high of 20 degrees. Now, it hasn't been complete sunshine everywhere today. As mentioned, there's a couple sprinkles of rain happening in eastern sections of Ontario, as well as to our west. But we here in the city of Toronto and most parts of the GTA enjoyed sunshine. High pressure is dominant. It's locked in place. We've got a dome essentially over southern Ontario. That's going to protect us through the day tomorrow. Here's the thing. We also see signs of maybe a pop-up shower as we make our way into the day on Saturday. First, there's Friday, looking fantastic. Heading into Saturday, mix of sun and cloud during the day. Best chance of maybe a shower or two is going to come about mid-afternoon and into the early part of the evening. But right now, we're calling that a 30% chance of showers. Dry as we make our way through the early part of next week. A little bit cooler, but still seasonal. And then Tuesday, the next best chance for another round of showers. By the end of the 7-day forecast, we might be talking about how dry it has been so far in this month. That's your look at the weather for now. Michelle, over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Coming up, a date has been set for the Maple Leafs' first playoff series with the Montreal Canadiens in more than 4 decades. When the puck will drop, we'll tell you. He was given just months to live, 31 years old, with an extremely rare tumor found on his heart.
Tonight, against the odds, he's cancer-free and back at home just in time to celebrate a milestone with his young family. CTV's Beth McDonnell has the story.
The turnaround is remarkable. Just 6 months ago, Ross Mangan, a 31-year-old dad of 2 little boys, found out he had a rare cancerous tumor on his heart. It was a devastating prognosis.
They said that I had less than a year to live. It was obviously upsetting for everybody.
Yet today, he's cancer-free.
It's surreal. I play with my kids and, I get to call my family and tell my family the good news, and overwhelming. It's awesome.
Mangan's fate was handed to Dr. Robert James Cusimano, a cardiac surgeon at Toronto General. At first, the tumor was too advanced to operate. There was a biopsy, chemotherapy, then the incredible life-saving surgery.
Remove and rebuild probably about a quarter of his heart, including a heart valve, blood vessels leading out of his heart, part of the heart, the base of the heart, the bottom of the heart. I did a bypass on him. So we were able to do that. That's sort of something I've gained with experience here.
Dr. Cusimano says not only is Mangan's cancer rare, so too are the number of doctors doing the intricate procedure. This year, he organized a conference and started an international heart cancer registry to help patients and medical teams. Cusimano didn't tell Mangan when they first met just how close he was to death at the time.
People often say to me, "Doctor, how can I ever thank you?" And just the fact that we took somebody who 6 months ago had less than a month to live probably, and the fact that we left no cancer behind, to me, that's the thanks that I get from him.
Yesterday, Mangan went home, reuniting with his wife and boys.
I feel very lucky. I feel very fortunate. You think of all the things that you're going to miss and not be a part of. It was heartbreaking. So now to be even just home and to play with them is just phenomenal. It's such a great feeling.
Mangan's prognosis now is bright, ready to get back to normal and all that life awaits. Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
It's a powerful new PSA marking Asian Heritage Month, celebrating contributions to Canada while illuminating the lived experiences of fear and pain caused by racism.
As they burned our Chinatowns down and spit on our grandmas at bus stops, we stayed quiet. As they laughed in our faces and told us to go back where we came from, but they've mistaken our silence for compliance. Looked on our meekness as weakness. See, we, and not the submissive stereotype that's been depicted on silence, on us, they've gotten it twisted. See, silence is golden, as are we.
This powerful video was organized by the Chinese-Canadian National Council for Social Justice and produced by Lainey Louie and Melissa Grello. The hashtag Face Race campaign aims to build knowledge and awareness about anti-Asian racism in Canada, both prior to and during this COVID-19 pandemic. It also aims to empower victims of racism to identify and fight racism while promoting community resilience.
The Tragically Hip will return to the stage next month at the Juno Awards. The Kingston Rockers will be joined by singer-songwriter Feist, who will handle the vocal duties. The Hip have known her for 20 years and say they're huge fans. It'll be the first televised performance by the band since the passing of frontman Gord Downey in 2017.
Well, as Ross used to say, they were on a break, but the long-awaited Friends reunion is finally a go. The whole gang will be back for the May 27th broadcast. The unscripted special was filmed earlier this year on the same LA soundstage as the original series. The reunion will also include some celebrity guests, including Lady Gaga, Justin Bieber, and Nobel laureate Malala Yousafzai.
Stars Tonight is brought to you by Lastman's Bad Boy. Who's better? Nobody.
We need to do everything in our power to protect this summer for all Ontarians. My goal is to have the most normal July and August possible.
Updating our top stories, Ontario's stay-at-home order is being extended until June 2nd. Now the Ford government is facing backlash for its decision to keep many outdoor activities closed.
Absolutely sad day today. Tough decision that's been made by Greyhound and announcing to our customers and employees that we're going to exit the Canadian business.
Greyhound Canada is permanently shuttering its operations. The company had suspended its service a year ago due to the pandemic, and now it says a year without riders made resuming operations impossible.
Don't forget to follow us on social media and keep up to date day and night through our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca. And if you have a news tip, photos, or video of breaking news, let us know. The extension of Ontario's stay-at-home order is generating plenty of discussion.
Some expressing their disappointment over the continued ban on many outdoor activities. CTV's CP24 Tonight is looking into this tonight. We're joined by Nick Dixon. Nick, there was this sense that, okay, maybe the stay-at-home order stays in place, but they could open up golf, and that's not happening, and you're talking to the golf industry.
Yeah, that's right, Michelle. I spoke to several people in the industry today who said, we kind of assumed the extension to the stay-at-home order was coming, but we thought there might be a reversal on the opening of sports amenities like golf courses where you can pretty easily distance from people. They were surprised that didn't happen, but say they have some strategies and will keep pushing to see if they can reopen before June 2nd. Should be an interesting panel there.
And also, Nick, the Premier pushing the Prime Minister for tougher border restrictions. You got a panel to weigh in on border security.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we're looking at the fact of whether or not closing borders down or restricting them even tighter right now, 14 months into the pandemic, is appropriate, considering the number of cases that come in via the border versus the number of cases that are already here, whether that's a fair attack or not. So we got a good panel of experts on that one as well. Much more to come on CP24 Tonight.
All right. Thank you, Nick. And don't forget, CP24 Tonight airs immediately following this newscast on CP24 from 7 to 9.
On the markets, the Canadian dollar lost more than 1/5 cent to close at 82.23 U.S. American benchmark oil slid $2.26 a barrel to close at 63.82, and the TSX Composite Index gained 28 points to close at 19,136.
The Toronto Maple Leafs will begin their quest for Lord Stanley's Cup a week from tonight.
Engvall's on it. Here's Engvall swinging it back, scores.
The NHL released its schedule for the opening round of the playoffs today, and the Buds will face off against Montreal May 20th at Scotiabank Arena. The two teams haven't played each other in the postseason in 42 years.
The pandemic has made the school year unlike any other. After the break, one principal's efforts to support not only his students, but his entire community.
Like all schools at Seacourt Elementary, it's been a very difficult and different year.
But its principal is trying his best to support not only the school, but the wider community. CTV's multimedia journalist Ted Brooks has more.
So I've been here for 4.5 years. It's a wonderful, vibrant community. It's a pretty big school. We've got 700 students that usually attend here. When it was announced back in March of 2020 that the schools were closed, and it was a Friday when the kids were walking out, and I had a pit in my stomach saying, when are we going to open up? And at that point, we didn't have remote learning fully matured, right? The kids didn't have technology. I was actually on New Year's Eve I was handing out laptops here at the school, right, just to have them. So we wanted to make sure that all our students were equipped. We ordered school supplies, and we kind of kept them in storage, knowing that if there is a third wave, how are students, how are families going to get these at stores? And we invited our parents to come to pick up items for remote learning.
We have some notebooks and some worksheets.
Like, I see my role is to advocate and support my school and my community.
We are blessed. We are gifted in this community because we have a leader like George at our school, a leader who stands up for all children, doesn't let a child or family be left behind.
That's our next step, right? Getting our school back, getting our lives back. So, we're looking forward to being able to safely open up our school again to welcome back our kids.
And last week, the school hosted a clinic with support from Michael Garron Hospital that saw roughly 1,400 community members get a vaccine.
All right, Lindsay, to the forecast, still a lot more daylight left.
There is. As we make our way through the night tonight, of course, the temperature is going to start to cool. And northwest of the city, there is once again a frost advisory in effect. But overnight tonight here in Toronto, the temperature not so bad, at least not compared to the last couple of nights. 7 is the forecast low. There's another look at tomorrow's forecast daytime highs. If you don't get an opportunity to get outside and enjoy this evening, tomorrow, another great chance for you. And the 7-day forecast is looking pretty bright, mild, and dry. That's the weather. Nathan and Michelle, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. Be sure to join Zarada Allman later tonight for CTV News at 11:30.
You can also stay up to date by going to our website. And a reminder, CP24 tonight begins momentarily on CP24.
For Lindsay and all of us at CTV News, have a good night.
Night.